distractions to so many institutions of higher learning. We have a singular focus. We have a purpose. It's clearly defined, and certainly it's attainable. All of our goals are before us and attainable, and with God's blessings and your help and your continued support and prayers, this work will continue to grow, and much good will continue to be done to God's glory and for the sake of the kingdom. Okay, not sure that I didn't have that in my slide, so I don't know if I went to the wrong direction. Well, that's not the first time. Oh, I've got this thing turned around. Do I? Yeah, I don't know. So which direction is the right? No, that's not it either. So, you know, Billy and I were talking about this last night at supper. There we go. PowerPoint and these things, they're fine when they work, and when they don't, you have things like this that just sort of put a hiccup in the whole flow of what you're trying to do. Sometimes you just like to have a bed sheet, tack a bed sheet up on the wall and do that. But you can see there we're a graduate school of preaching. What we started out as and what we are focusing on right now is that you have men, especially in Africa and places around the world, that have opportunity to go and live on a campus and get a 2-year education. And that's it, you know, that's kind of the extent of their opportunity. So what we've done is we've gone in and we've said, okay, let's talk to these men who are graduates, and we'll get them laptops and software and everything that they need, and we'll teach them from their home. And we'll use Zoom or Google Meet or some kind of online, distance learning platform like that. And we've got everything set up through Google Classroom where they can get their assignments, and it just works very well. But we offer them tuition-free education. Everything is tuition-free. They don't pay a dime. We supply them with laptops. We've got a digital library that has 17,000 volumes, and these are theological books. These are brotherhood books, sermon books, commentaries, and Bible dictionaries, and just all sorts of things. And it's really amazing. We can put 17,000 volumes on a thumb drive. And to imagine, that you can carry 17,000 books around in your pocket is really an amazing thing. So where we talk about, things like with PowerPoint and not knowing which way to point this thing or whatever, technology is what's enabling us to do what we're doing. So there's sometimes, I guess, when we pine for the old bed sheet or flannel board sermons, but without Zoom or Google Meet or Google Classroom or the technology that we have, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So we operate completely debt-free. We don't owe anybody anything but God. And see what I mean, how that simplifies things. And what we're able to do through the free will offering of brethren. We're not selling anything. We're not, engaged in the stock market or anything like that. We're not doing any of those things that other schools do to try to raise money. And we operate completely debt-free. And so as we have funds, we start a new extension. And right now we've got our extension in Kenya and listen, in Kenya alone, we've had to turn students away. We filled up the Kenya extension in less than a week. The Ghana extension in West Africa in less than a week. And the South Africa Zimbabwe students. That filled up in less than 2 weeks. And in Kenya, we've been turning men away, on average, probably 2 a week since we've got started. We could probably, I think, safely say if we had the means to do it, we could probably have 30 students just in Kenya right now, maybe more. So the interest is there, and it's just, but we're not going to overextend ourselves and get into a situation where, we can't do what we want to do. So we've got 10 students in Kenya, and 10 in Ghana, and 10 down in South Africa and Zimbabwe, and we've got 3 students here in the United States. Now, in the States, you really have a different scenario. You've got more opportunities. You've got colleges and things where men can go after a school of preaching, and more power to them, if that's what they want to do. But I'm proud of the 3 that we've got, and these men that come, they are getting a good education. They're good men. They're intelligent, capable. They're doing great things already, and I think they're just going to continue to do great things. Now, as we're moving forward, I think one of the things, and I think this is on the next slide, but one of the things that we've talked about is actually beginning an undergraduate program, a school of preaching that will be completely online, and then young men or men who maybe they're 30, 40 years old, and they say, I've always wanted to preach, but I've never had the opportunity to go and get an education. Well, those men typically have to raise funds and move their family to wherever the campus is. So if they want to go to Memphis or to Tri-Cities or somewhere, West Virginia, they're uprooting their family, they're quitting their job, they're moving their life, raising support, and then going and living for 2 years and hoping to go out into the mission field or into a pulpit somewhere here in the States. So our hope is what we'll be able to do is start this undergraduate program that, again, will be tuition free and completely online. I didn't move that. You want to back it up one. So if they can, not have to move their family, not have to quit their job, not have to raise support to go to school, and we can teach them tuition free and completely online. And listen, I think we've got a faculty that stacks up with anybody. Our men have earned doctorates, or they're on their way to getting them. And I'll say this, every one of our teachers have been educated in brotherhood schools. None of our men have gone off to denominational seminaries and been tainted or indoctrinated and brought that stuff back. Now, they're also all gospel preachers. They're active in full-time ministry. So our men are preachers who have put in the sacrifice and the labor to earn their education, even advancing so far as their doctorate. And they're just capable, good men. Now, our men overseas haven't had the opportunity to get a doctorate in Africa, let's say, but they're all good men, intelligent, very capable men, and they're all faithful gospel preachers who have also been educated in brotherhood schools. Now, you might wonder why I even bring that up, but one of the things, one of the crises that we are facing in the church today as far as the education of preachers is a trickle-down apostasy. Now, a lot of the strange things that you may have heard come from the pulpit over the years, and you wonder, well, where did he get that? I've never heard any such thing as that. That happens sometimes. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I reckon we could probably all raise our hands and say, yeah, I remember this one time, and spend the rest of our time talking about something. Well, where does that happen? Well, a lot of times this is what happens. You have a man who, let's say in 1970, 1980, he wanted to become a professor in a college. at one of our schools. And to do that, he needed to go get his PhD. Well, we didn't offer an accredited PhD in any of our schools until 2001. So, you see, there were no opportunities. So a man's going to go and he'll go to school in a denominational seminary. Sometimes he'll even go to school at a university that's run by Jewish scholars. They don't even believe in Christ. But, you know, a preacher or teacher or somebody of renown went there, and so they go there. Now, it didn't affect every man. There were some good men. Hugo McCord was a good man, a great gospel preacher. We might remember William Woodson, an Alabama man that was a fine gospel preacher. Not like it affected everybody, but it did affect some. They picked up on some strange things in these schools, and then they bring them back into the university where they're teaching. And they themselves, many of these men are not even preachers, you see. And it's just all academic. It's theory and speculation and things of this nature. And so you've got a man who really doesn't preach and can't preach and couldn't preach if his life depended on it, who's been educated for 4, 5, 6 years by someone who's not a faithful brother in Christ, and now we place him in charge of training the next generation of preachers to come sit at his feet. You see how that'd be problematical? And then these boys hear it and they take it to the pulpit to you. And this is where so many of the issues and the problems that we have faced in the brotherhood, we say, yeah, but the Bible says this. It's so plain. It's so clear. The Bible says it. But you see, they're not approaching it from that standpoint. They're approaching it from the standpoint of what they've read in a book somewhere or something like that, what a teacher taught them, or whatever. Well, so what we've done, we've said, listen, we want our men to be educated in Christian universities, and we want them to be faithful gospel preachers. These are the kinds of men that we want teaching in our school. And I think that's just going to make a tremendous difference. Now, we set ourselves up as a nonprofit organization, had to for tax purposes. That meant that we had to get a board. Well, a board legally has to have 3 members on it. Well, we've got 2 elders here. And so we asked a third man, Mike Kaiser, who's been preaching in Sylacauga, Alabama for 40 years now, I think 38 years. But Mike has been preaching over 60 years, and Billy's been preaching over 60 years. And, of course, while Ben doesn't fill a pulpit every Sunday, there's nobody that would question Ben's integrity or love for the church or Christian character. So those are the 3 men that we have in our boards, on our board of directors. I think, you know, while it's not a great big board of 20 or 30 people or anything like that, I wouldn't trade those 3 men for anybody. I think we're set. I mean, we've got, and, you know, Mike has made over 40 trips to Ghana. He even lived over there for a couple of years. So you've got, you know, in Mike, a man with love for his mission field in Ghana, and we have that extension there. So he knows the lay of the land over there. It's just worked beautifully. And the way that we have this set up, let's say if something happens to Ben, Billy, or Mike, for their replacement to be selected, or if there's a 4th man ever added, those 3 men have to agree unanimously on who's going to be added to the board. Now, just to go ahead and continue with a little of what's been going on in some of our schools, it's not uncommon, and Billy can tell you more about this than I can. He certainly has more experience and knowledge of this than I do. But I'll say, and he would agree, a lot of what happens, people are added to the board not because of their faith or their love for the church, but because of their deep pockets. Okay? Now, with the exception of Ben, we didn't do that. Okay. I just see if you're still listening over there. He was the first one to laugh at that. All right. But again, you see, we're not, Just that we're debt free. We're not worried about that. We don't feel like we have to compromise what we're doing or what we believe, who we are, where we stand, by adding someone to the board that we don't feel like is going to have the same purpose of heart that we have and sharing our mission statement. So we're good with that. You see, I mean, it just, the whole thing is just, it's just set up like it ought to be. So you've got faithful men who are on the board. We've got men who are educated in Christian schools who are faithful gospel preachers teaching these men who have already gone through a school of preaching. And mind you, for them to be accepted into our program, two things have to be given. We need a transcript of where they graduated from. We want to see that they were a good student. And then secondly, we take a letter of recommendation from either the preacher, an elder, or somebody, former teacher, but somebody that can speak to their Christian character. And if they can't, supply us with proof that they can do the work scholastically, and that they're going to represent us in a fine way out here in the world and in their work, we don't have to accept them. This is a scholarship-based school, okay? So you want to hear something crazy? Y'all want to hear something nuts? Now this is why what I just said is key. Scholarship-based school, we don't have to accept them. All right? Years ago, when I was writing my dissertation, I wrote it on mentoring in a school of preaching. And I wanted to take modern mentoring theory, and I wanted to take the shepherd leadership model in the scripture, and let's see how the two relate to each other, and if there's any connection, any benefit in these things in training preachers. So that's kind of what I was looking at doing. So I interviewed 20, I think, graduates over the last 10 years of a school of preaching. I thought, well, some of these men may want to enroll in the school, so I sent emails out to all of them. I get an email back from a person, and they said, you wouldn't want me in your school. And they started throwing all these words out there that I don't even know what they mean. The whole transgender stuff, they've got all these words. But anyway, so they sent me back an email saying they're transgender, atheist, and then all these terms that, I don't know, binary or something like that, or non-binary, or something, I don't know. It's just a bunch of stuff. I was like, good night, man. I'm not going to even bother looking that stuff up. I'd hate to see what it is. And so anyway, I just replied back. I said, sorry, wrong email. Sorry, got the wrong person here. And the person replies back, and they're trying to goad me, I guess, but they said, oh, no, sweetie. Yeah, you got the right email. My dead name is so-and-so, and I go by this name now. Well, this is a man who was, his daddy was, it's heartbreaking. His daddy was a preacher. He was a preacher. He was married. A very intelligent, capable. When I interviewed him, he was in Israel doing some study in Israel in Old Testament text. He very intelligent, but I guess he's had a mental break somewhere. Something has happened to him, psychologically, mentally. But anyway, so he tells me this, who he is and what he's done and all this stuff, and I didn't reply. How do you reply to that? So anyway, what if he decided, which I guess he would be very insulted that I call him he this morning, but what if he decided he wanted to come and make trouble and enroll in our school, right? Well, we're a scholarship-based school. We don't have to extend him a scholarship. See what I'm saying? And we're not worried about government accreditation, where they would come in and say, oh, House Resolution 5, the Equality Act says you have to this or that. No, we don't. We're not taking one dime of money from the U.S. Department of Education. So we're not worried about what they say. What do they know about training preachers anyway? They can't balance their own budget. Why would I want them involved in my school? See what I mean? So, and we're exempt from Tennessee Higher Education Commission status because we're tuition free. See, a lot of these state groups, like in Alabama, it's kind of funny, but you know, Alabama, the acronym is AIC, and it really is. It's an ache. It's a neck ache, a pain in the neck, but they call it the Alabama Commission of Higher Education. We looked into that because Summerdale sponsors us. But a lot of these things are set up as a means of safeguarding students against consumer fraud, because they don't want degree mills that are operating and charging students tuition for a degree that's not worth the paper it's written on. Well, when we're not charging tuition and we're operating for the purposes of the church, they're not worried about us, and we can be exempt from all their fees and procedures and all that sort of thing. So anyway, that has worked out for us. So not only are we debt free, but we're free from all government meddling in what we want to do. And I think you'd all probably amen the benefit of that. We've got good leadership. We've got men in place who know what they're doing and know what we want to do and what we're about. And that's, you know, and God is blessing us. And that's all that matters. I'm ready for that next slide, if you are. Thank you. So here's what we're looking for. We want men to do the work of an evangelist. I think that involves 5 skills, 5 key skills. Of course, preaching. You'll never be a gospel preacher if you can't and don't preach the word. Never do the work of an evangelist. And we want these men to see distinctive preaching for what it is, the value of it, to preach the gospel and let that set them apart. We want them to be fervent and zealous in evangelism, in soul winning. We want them to be able to debate and to write, and also to be involved in the ministry of their local church, you know, to be good teachers in their ministry, to set good examples in their ministry, to be benevolent in their ministry. I think these are 5 skills. You know, we think about, any of you who are baseball fans may have heard the idea of a 5-tool baseball player, one that can run and throw and hit for power and all that. I think there are 5 skills that are essential for a preacher, things that we want to implement, things that we encourage. And first of all, is preaching, a distinctive way to preach the gospel, not to get carried away in stories and myths and fables and foolishness, but to preach Christ and Him crucified, and to do so with a love for souls, a love for the truth, a love for the Lord, a love for the church. That kind of preaching, I believe, builds up churches. It builds up the faith of the members, and it builds up churches because, numerically, because the gospel is preached and then the lost will be saved. But all of these other things are essential too. And we want to see these men be able to do these things as well. Go ahead to the next slide. I guess, are we done now? How much time do I have left? Oh, good. Okay. You can't miss that, can you? You can. I've been missing it. I didn't even realize it. I've been missing it for the whole presentation. All right. So future plans, what we're hoping is to expand into other English-speaking countries. And we have plans looking at countries like Uganda, Zambia. So when you look at Africa, there would be 10 or 12 other countries we could extend very easily. But then also there are countries like Australia, New Zealand, that need not be forgotten. Of course, the Philippines, they speak English there. And while there are countries in Europe that aren't necessarily English speaking as the first language, they do speak English. And we need to get to work in Europe. The church is very weak in Europe. And I don't know what we can necessarily, do about that. But we're not going to do anything if we don't try. And so I went last year to England, and there is some interest there. I think it would be the kind of thing like we're facing in America, where you might have 2 or 3 students per country, and you might have to put all of them together into one extension. It's something, though, that's worth thinking about. I talked to you about the program in Kenya and the possibility of expanding that. The McGarvey College Press is something that we're looking at. We want to be able to print our own textbooks. We want to be able to publish our own textbooks, books that we'll use in the school and also books that other schools can use, where we're not depending on denominational literature in our classes. It's okay to know some of this stuff and who these people are and maybe what they say, and there's certainly going to be some benefit in these various studies written by people who are not members of the church. I'm not saying that it's all bad, but it is eating the fish and throwing the bones away. And some of that stuff can be awfully bony, and the fish isn't very good either. So that's where you kind of think, well, maybe we can do some things from a perspective of our faith and publish some things that are going to be very helpful. As far as an academic journal, we've got a professor that is very interested in this and trying to do something that would incorporate kind of a peer-reviewed journal among other schools among us. And I spoke to you about the undergraduate program. What we're looking at, again, would be a tuition-free, 100% online 4-year program where a man wouldn't have to uproot his family, wouldn't have to quit his job, wouldn't have to worry about raising support to move somewhere and go to school. So that's something, we've got the prospectus laid out. It's just a matter of financing it. It's a matter of manpower and moving forward. We don't want to do anything unless we've got the means to be able to do it. So, brother, I think there may be one last slide, but there may not be. Okay, that was it. All right, do y'all have any questions, any comments, anything I didn't cover? Billy? Yeah, it's of course, the school is a graduate school of preaching. As it's set up right now, it's for men who have graduated from maybe an undergraduate college or school of preaching, and they want to continue their education. When we get this thing set up on a 4-year undergraduate, if we go into that, I would like to see then some expansion as far as students. If there's a Christian lady that would like to attend, if there's an elder or deacon or just a brother that wants to attend, and even to be able to audit courses where you can just come when you want to and you don't have to worry about earning a degree or completing the entirety of the program. So that's something that as we're looking forward to possible students and making things accessible and available to different ones. So, but yeah, you can, if there's anybody that you know, or if you're interested and you want to talk to me about these things, be happy to do so. Let's see, 35 students right now, which it's interesting. I went back and looked at um, some of the old College of the Bible enrollment records. There was a book that kind of gives the history of the first 100 years there, and I want to say they started out with 35 students. I want to say that's right. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Coincidental. Any other questions or comments? Let me say, you know, I think as far as enrollment, I don't think it's a stretch to say we could have probably had 55 or 65 students this time. But when you're supplying laptops for these students and transporting them and things like that, the transporting of them was a cost as well. But when you're doing that, you know, it's just, well, I mean, it would have doubled our expenses and just wouldn't have been feasible. So you hate to tell people no, and we're not saying no, we're just saying wait. You know, but that's where we're at. Okay. Well, yeah. So books that I've written, you can find them all on Amazon. You can order them directly from the publisher as well. But let's see, some of you that may have gone to Freed Hardeman or lived in Tennessee or lived through that era, you might remember the great preacher that was W.A. Bradfield. I wrote a biography about W.A. Bradfield and took his sermons and reformatted them, put them in the book. And, but that's an inspiring lesson. But there's a book that we use for church history, Select Studies in Church History. And it's kind of a Reader's Digest version of the Restoration Movement. If you're very curious about history of churches of Christ in the United States, there's a book on the Lord's Church. It's Outline Studies in New Testament Church. And, it's a book for ministers. It's kind of a commentary on 1 Timothy 4:16. Take heed unto yourself. The dissertation on mentoring is a legacy worth sharing. There's commentaries on Hebrews and Revelation. I don't know how many is it. Oh, there's a book on evangelism, Each One Reach One. If you're interested in that. Study of church growth and personal evangelism. There's a book of sermons, Truth, Plain and Simple, and Other Gospel Sermons, 25 sermons that are full content. Of course, you can always go to gospelgleaner.com and get the Gleaner emailed to you. The Gospel Gleaner. Yeah, that's a journal that we publish every quarter. If you give me your email or email me, I'll be happy to add you to that and send that out to you. You used to get the hard copy. We quit printing a hard copy. We've just gone completely digital. They've got to have those skills before they enter the school. That's one of the. Yes, sir. It is. They've got to know how to use it. New, yes, ma'am. New. I mean, that's what we've done. You know, if there's one we can refurbish and use, maybe, I mean, that may be certainly worth looking into. Yeah, I've got a couple too. You're right. No, and it might, I mean, if you can refurbish them and update the software and they're good to go, I mean, certainly be something to consider. I just don't know how, how dependable refurbished laptops are. I don't know. They are? Huh? After we do the software and everything, well, the computer and the software, you're generally looking probably, $600, something like that. And then it's the shipping to get it over there. They charge you these duty fees. So this is a weird thing. You think about something, say, in Kenya or somewhere being cheaper than it is in America, and sometimes that's true. But on things like laptops, they're more expensive there than they are here. It's more expensive to purchase one there than here, because they don't make them over there. So everything's imported, and all that, the duty fee that their country charges for importing these things just raises the cost. So, but we've done it both ways. We bought them here and shipped them over there, and then we've also just sent money over there and let them buy it over there. So, any other comments or thoughts or questions? All right, guys, I appreciate your time and invitation being here with you. Oh, and gospelgleaner.com is that website if you'd like to subscribe to that.